All right, we are live for our 3 p.m. live stream from Prairie Creek Redwood State Park, part of Redwood State and National Park, on a beautiful rainy day here in the Redwoods. Looks like we've got our first person tuning in. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay, if you can see my picture okay. I'm a little right near the Wi-Fi center, so hopefully I'm coming in nice and clear. It's a beautiful rainy day out here in the Redwoods. And so fittingly, I'm going to talk a little bit about rain and water in the Redwoods. Wait a couple seconds to about a minute, see if anybody else gets tuned in, and I'll show you some beautiful views of the Redwoods while we're waiting. Hello from Louisiana. Hello, Tracy. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you being here from Louisiana. Spectacular. Oh, those ferns. Absolutely beautiful ferns. Lee, thank you for the feedback. Loud and clear. I love it. Looks good. Sounds great. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate the feedback. Yeah, we've got some beautiful ferns. Everybody's getting a nice drink today. Rivers flowing. Ferns are growing. A beautiful rainy day out here at Prairie Creek Redwoods. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Clip you into my little tripod right here. All right. Just want to say really quickly, hello, my name is Kyle. I'm a park interpretive specialist with California State Parks. And today, as I mentioned, we're out at Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. This is in Redwood State and National Park. I thought for this beautiful rainy day, I would take advantage to talk a little bit about rain and water in the Redwoods and how these massive, massive trees get their water. Drink how much? How big do they get? And talk a little bit about some of the ecosystem. But really quickly before we get started, I do want to recognize that so many of you are doing your part to stay home, shelter in place, and stop the spread of COVID-19. Thank you guys all so much for doing that. Some of you might be wondering, why are we in the parks when so many of you are home? We do these daily 3 p.m. live streams to give you a little bit of peek into the nature that you might be missing, that you might not be able to visit right now, and hopefully to give you a little look into the parks, to give you something to be excited to come back to. Maybe see some new places that you haven't seen before, give you some new ideas of some places to visit, and also provide you with some information so next time you're out here, you'll be able to kind of hopefully appreciate the places in some new light. Maybe not more, but maybe in a different way. So, rain in the Redwoods. It's awesome. It's raining today. It's been raining for a couple hours now, and Redwoods, a redwood forest, is technically a rainforest. It gets enough annual rainfall that these forests are considered rainforests. Wish that was my backyard, says Sandra. I wish this was my backyard too. It would be spectacular. And you know, anybody with redwood forest in their backyard, it's pretty exciting. So this redwood forest, just like all redwood forests, is considered a rainforest. And now Redwood National and State Park, which I'm in today, Prairie Creek is a part of Redwood National and State Park, gets about 80 inches of rainfall per year. And while that number might not sound like anything to a lot of you, down in LA, which is considered a desert, not a rainforest, but they get about 15 inches of rainfall annually. So down in LA, Southern California, it's about 15 inches a year. Up here on the North Coast, in Redwood National and State Park, it's 80 inches a year. This is the most rain in the state, is up here on the North Coast. Love spending time in the Redwoods, especially in the rain. There is something magical about Redwoods in the rain. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I think it's spectacular. Sounds beautiful. There's something special about it. So, these redwood trees that grow in a rainforest, they help to kind of create this ecosystem. They're one of the kind of the pillars of what makes a redwood forest. A redwood forest is redwoods, absolutely. So tons of rainfall coming in here, and redwoods kind of are here because of how much rainfall, but they also help facilitate the climate where there are big forests and things like that. So how do these trees get so much water? So they can drink, let's put it up to you. How many gallons in a day do you think a redwood tree could drink? And now this does vary per tree, per day, but just on average, about how much water, how many gallons a day do you think a redwood tree could drink? These are massive trees, huge. You know, these old growth trees, how much water do you think that they would need in a day? I'm going to take you over to show you some of these massive, beautiful trees while you think about it. How much water do you think a massive redwood like this the ones that are not dead. How much water do you think they would drink in a day? We got our first guess from Lee here, 500 gallons. It's a good guess. It's a lot of water. It does make you feel so insignificant standing next to these absolute giants. Massive, massive trees. And I know a couple of you were tuning in last week talking about reiterations in cathedral trees, where another redwood tree will grow off of a redwood tree. I just started looking up this tree and I realized that it has a couple of beautiful iterations up there, and I can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I want to come back to your guesses. How much water in a day does a redwood drink? And a rough estimate is about 150 gallons. And that is quite a lot of water. 150 gallons in a day. A ton of water. This can be during the summertime when they're growing a lot. And again, as I said, it varies per season, per tree. It's a kind of flexible number. But around 150 gallons a day. And as we know, we're not getting 150 gallons of rain falling from the sky in the summertime. So let's talk a little bit about how these trees get some of their water. And one of the really big ways that some of these trees get their water, and you may have noticed if you've been to the redwoods before, is fog. The redwood forest helps to facilitate fog and grows in the areas that they grow because fog is such an important part of their ecosystem. And now today we have plenty of rain, so they don't necessarily need fog to help them get their water, which fog is made up of water. So they've got plenty of rain today, but it is a little bit foggy. So redwood trees can do this really cool thing that not all plants can do. And they can actually absorb a small amount of water through their needles. They're able to directly absorb water through their needles. So as the fog is drifting through a redwood forest, they're able to collect that on the needles of the tree and to absorb it. They also have this really cool adaptation where they have developed any fog and things to basically condense on their needles. So as the fog's coming through, those little droplets are collecting on the needles. And the way that their branches and needles are designed, that fog starts to collect on those leaves and starts to work its way down a branch until it drips off the end of the branch. And they call that a fog drip or a redwood drip, where the ends of the branches are dripping water. And what that's doing is putting water directly onto their roots, which are much better at absorbing it than their leaves are. Which, as I said, their leaves can absorb a small amount of water, which is not common for plants. That's special for redwoods and a few other plants. But that drip off the end of the leaves puts that right down onto their roots that they're able to absorb and collect the water that way. And that also helps anything that's growing around the base of a redwood to get some water, that these redwoods facilitate essentially a false rainfall by collecting this fog on their branches and dripping it down to the forest floor, just like water would. It's incredible. It's pretty spectacular. Just wanted to check back at your comments really quick. Sorry for the thumb in your face. So, these trees are massive. These trees are super tall. So, if they're collecting... Thank you very much. If they're collecting water at their roots, how are they getting that all the way to the top of the tree to help them continue to grow? I see your question, Tracy said, what is their average age? Redwood trees can grow thousands of years. It's difficult in a forest like this where parts of this have been logged, so there's a huge variance in the age. But I think it would be a safe bet to say that they're probably close to 1,000 years old. A lot of the trees here are old growth trees. They're big, they're massive. They can live up to around 3,000 years. So it's a pretty safe-ish bet. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to do a little bit more research, that these trees are probably around 1,000 years old, if not older. So, anyway, back to rainfall. Old trees, they're awesome. How do they get that water all the way up to the top of the tree? Well, they do something that is common in most plants. There are these microscopic little cells. Wow and double wow. I love it. I love it. Thank you guys so much for your comments and your feedback. It's getting me all excited. I love it. So, these trees essentially have microscopic cells on their leaves called stomata. Well, needles in this case, called stoma or stomata, plural. If you guys have taken botany, this is a really important part of plants. And essentially what it is a tiny little opening, microscopic, that allows gas exchange. So it, takes in CO2 through the air, transpires. It's basically how they breathe. There's all these tiny little openings on the leaves, opening and closing. And that gas exchange is also how they pull water up through the tree. It works kind of like a straw. So if you take a straw, I'm not promoting the use of plastic straws, but if you have a straw handy, or maybe next time you're at a restaurant and they throw a straw at you, hopefully not anytime soon with all of these things going on, but anyway, you have a straw for whatever reason. If you dip it in the water and put your finger on the top of it and pull it out, the water will stay in the straw, right? And then if you take your finger off, the water will fall out. Or if you suck on it, you can pull the water up to your mouth. This is really similar to the way that the stoma works. It's like you have your finger on the top of the straw when it's closed. It's holding water in the roots and not necessarily sucking anything up. And this is common when there is not as much water available. The stoma will stay closed because it's also stopping evaporation, stopping water from escaping, as well as stopping necessarily more from coming in. So when the stomata opens and starts to do this gas exchange, you can think about it like you sucking on the straw. It starts to pull that water in from the roots. And these tiny microscopic holes on these pine needles, all, hundreds of feet up these trees, is able to pull water through the vascular system in a tree up where they need those nutrients, where they need that hydration. So it's microscopic openings on the leaves or the pine needles on the top of a tree that are facilitating this water traveling hundreds of feet into the air through these microscopic openings doing gas exchange. It's absolutely incredible. Just want to take a look back really quick at some of your guys' comments. I saw a couple of things pouring in here. All right, spectacular. What happened at Rainbow Ridge? That is a great question because I don't know. I will do some research after the program's over and comment back and let you know what I can find out. So, tiny microscopic openings, drinking water, pulling it up to the top of these absolutely massive trees. I'll pull us out really quick just to give us another look at these trees. Water being pulled up to around 400 feet into the air. And maybe these trees aren't quite that big, but absolutely incredible. So the other thing I wanted to talk about really quick, we had a little conversation about it last week, but I couldn't find a good example. A really good example right up this tree. Yes, Kimberly asked, isn't there some effect of hydrogen bonds pulling the water up too? Yes, there is. And I would need to refresh some of my botany to get exactly which chemical bonds and which things, but I know the hydrogen bonds in water are exceptionally strong, and I'm sure that they play some part in pulling that up. But I just think it's absolutely incredible that it's these microscopic cells that are kind of the driving force for water being pulled hundreds of feet into the air. It's absolutely incredible. What's the oldest tree? That is a good question, Kate. I will do a little bit more research and get back to your comment after the live stream's over. I don't know exactly the oldest tree in existence, but I know it's around. The oldest tree is not a coast redwood tree. Coast redwood trees live around 3,000 years, but there is older trees than that. I'll do a little bit of research and get back to you. What I did want to show you guys really quick is this area right here in the canopy. So you can see essentially probably about 50 feet up this redwood tree, it splits into 1, 2, 3, 4 different trees. So we were talking about cathedral trees last week, which is not a term I had heard before, but I did look at some pictures and things like that after the fact, and your guys' comments really helped clue me into what we were looking at. And this reiteration happening here is pretty common in redwood trees, and this happens due to stress. So redwood trees are loaded with spores, which are clonal, identical... I missed the opening. Where am I? And thank you, Megan, for coming back. The transpiration cohesion theory. Yes, with hydrogen bonds. Water is sticky. Judy, missed the opening. Where am I? I am in Prairie Creek Redwood State Park, a part of Redwood State National Park, and I am right next to the Campfire Center, and there's Prairie Creek just behind me. All right. So, redwood trees can reproduce with seeds, just like most plants. This is 2 parent groups, or spores, which are clonal, identical organisms. So these trees, all growing out of the top of this single tree, are probably have the same DNA, essentially, but are all growing out of one individual who was either stressed or experienced some sort of trauma and started growing these additional trees. So I just saw that really good example just above me here. I'm going to wrap up here. It is nice and rainy, and I'm getting wonderfully wet. And I just, if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat. I'm just going to walk around for another minute and give you some of these beautiful views. Again, something so very special about rain in the Redwoods. It's beautiful, it sounds good, it smells good. I know you guys can't smell it, but I'll walk you around for just a minute. And if you do have any questions, please pop them on down in the chat. And if I can't answer them right now, I am so very happy to do a little bit more research and come back and answer them for you. So if you're heading out now, thank you so much for hanging out and listening. Really appreciate you guys tuning into these live streams. We're doing them every single day from our Facebook page. We also have daily K-12 programs going on through the California State Park Ports programs. If you go to their Ports page, you can learn a little bit more about those. There's tons of programs going on, trying to give you guys this stuff while you're home, give you a little bit of preview into the park. So thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I'm just going to walk around and show some cool trees. Thank you guys for your kind words, and thank you again so much for tuning in. I've got my cousins on here. I've got my mom on here. Wow. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I see Lee commenting back, one of the oldest trees, potentially a bristlecone pine. That sounds right. I've done the research before. I just don't have the tree off the top of my head right now. There's one specific tree that is exceptionally old, and I'm so sorry that I'm blanking on it. Oh, here we've got a good example of this kind of redwood drip that I was talking about, how these pine needles can condense the fog. Now, this is happening with rain, so it's a little bit quicker than it would be happening with the fog, but that works good for our purposes. You can see right here, sorry, it's wet and having a little bit of difficulty now. Right at the end of these branches here, you're getting these little droplets. Sorry, it's wanting to focus on the ferns behind. There we go, one just fell off. Yes, Robin, I will link the Ports page where you sign up for those home learning programs as soon as I'm done here. I'm sorry, guys, it won't focus on these leaves here, but it's doing exactly what it's showing you exactly what I wanted to show you, it just won't focus. Beautiful. You can see it right. Diana, happy to take you to the Redwoods anytime. Hopefully when all of this is over, you can come on up for a visit, maybe camp out for a couple of days. It is a night and day difference to go from Southern California in the desert. Yeah, night and day difference from the desert, Southern California, to this rainforest of Northern California. It's absolutely incredible. Rainbow Ridge was harvested. Aha, thank you for answering that question for me. Happy to take you guys into the Redwoods anytime. I'm back doing this every Saturday. I'll be coming out to Prairie Creek. But if you guys want to see Humboldt Redwood State Park, you can tune into Griff's live broadcast. He's on every Friday and Sunday, talking to you from Humboldt Redwoods State Park. So hopefully we're trying to provide as many opportunities as possible for you guys to come check out the parks with us. All right, you guys, with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'll come back around and answer your questions. Anything that I wasn't able to answer immediately, I'll do a little bit more research and come back around. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to beam on in and check out the Redwoods with me and do a little bit of exploration. So again, these live streams are happening 3 p.m. every single day on our Facebook page. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in, doing your part, shelter in place. We appreciate you guys, and hopefully we'll see you again in our next live stream. I'm going to go ahead and tune off before my phone gets too wet or I get too wet. Thank you guys again. Talk to you soon. Oh, I saw one question, seeing more wildlife since the shelter in place order, and definitely there's Redwood National Park, their page, they've been doing a little bit of posting about some of the wildlife. I saw foxes in my backyard, which is not in a park, but I hadn't seen that before. And I've also, I think I saw some bear poop along the trail, which I hadn't seen here before. So the animals are definitely enjoying that there is less people in these parks. Turn it back around, give you a All right, so long everybody. We'll see you in our next live stream.